Today we're gonna create our third mage, and this time we're gonna go for the Runemaster mastery. My main focus will be to go for channel skills like Disintegrate over here. It's doing some lightning damage and some fire damage. My main focus will be on lightning, but we shall see how things go around. And then we're gonna jump into the Runemaster, which has the power scaling tags. I usually look at this just to know what to expect and in which direction I should be heading whenever I'm picking up a new idea. We have lightning, cold, and fire, so we have all the elements there. We have some fire and spells, so maybe it's worth investing in fire as well. Cold, spell, and damage over time. There's some lightning, cold, and fire once again. And lightning and spell. So there are a few skills which go for lightning directly. I guess there are skills for all of the elements. That's what the mage is all about. And we shall see how it feels within the game. I will see you whenever I unlock Disintegrate. Now that we have a plan, let me just say good morning everyone, welcome back to the Two-Headed Wolf Gaming channel. Hope you have your coffees ready because we're gonna start with the boss battle. I've unlocked the ability to disintegrate, channel to create a beam of pure energy in the target direction. The beam deals fire and lightning damage to all enemies caught in it, and we have no mana regen while channeling. I also felt like teleport might be a really good ability here, because when we are channeling the ability we cannot move at all, and thus teleporting from one area to the other will be super useful. Flame Ward granting us a burst of 400 words, that is also very important in case of a cooldown on teleport. If we cannot move away from the enemy, at least we can cast this and grant us a bit of protection. Other than that, we're focusing on lightning as an attack, but we're mostly focusing on disintegrate at the moment. And we shall see what we do later when we specialize. But this is it for now. I have Mana Strike over here, don't know how much I'll be using it. Probably not that much. What I want is that Mana Regeneration ability. Doesn't come to mind the name right now. It's very early in the morning. It's 6 o'clock. And I'm on my first cup of coffee, so I'm not there yet. Okay, let's avoid that attack. The beam is doing good damage. The teleportation ability is helping us a lot. Okay, we can see that the mana is running out a bit more than I thought. I guess a big portion of that is also the teleport ability. It had a 22 cost. Yes, cost 22 mana to teleport. But maybe we can get a bit more attunement later on, get a bit more of that mana regeneration. Either way this works. And when we're running out of mana, I could actually go for Lightning Bolt, right? I could go with this because it has a 0 cost. I could even go with Mana Strike, but we're not really focused on melee damage, and that's why I would avoid it. That's why I want to get the ability to generate mana. Only tune, not an attack. I'm gonna try to make this build very efficient, or as efficient as I can. I guess one of the big challenges we've seen with the wizard is he has a lot, or the mage, he has a lot of spells. However, it's a bit more difficult to keep up with the mana consumption, which is nice. At least it's a very different playstyle, right? I've gone with a two-handed staff over here. Nothing too crazy at the moment, but it felt like appropriate to try this out as well. I found this armor, which is not the best in the world, but it gives us 74 health, and I decided, why not? The only thing which I'm a bit sad about is just because it looks the same. Most of the unique armors which we found, they look the same. And this is the same visual as another one of the normal armor, so it's not even unique for the uniques. Hopefully they will improve this in the future. I am guessing that trying to create unique graphics with a small team for everything that you throw in the game is definitely not a cheap process. But maybe they will decide to do it in the future. To begin with, I specialized in Disintegrate whenever I have unlocked it. And you unlock Disintegrate by spending 9 points or 10 points here in the Mage tree. I guess let's start with the passives. What I've done so far is that I went with Elementalist. because it increases fire and lightning damage, which Disintegrate has both. That's why we have 672 damage. I went then with Arcanist, just to get intelligence. This is going to increase our spell damage for a few of the spells. I don't know, does it apply to Disintegrate? Yes, it applies to Disintegrate as well. You can take a look down at the bottom, scaling tags. You see that it has intelligence, so it does add to it. Also, to get a bit more resistance, and the intelligent points also grants us 4% word retention. So we want that. We want to stay with or generate a lot of word, because we will be sitting still a lot while channeling Disintegrate and any other spells which use channels. So it's important to be protected. That's my thinking for right now. And rather than going like last time with mana and health, I felt like going this way might be an idea to try out at least. And then preparation: every 3 seconds your next elemental spell deals increased damage and has the chance to slow down enemies. Felt appropriate as well to at least throw a point in here. I won't go further than that because Disintegrate, I don't know exactly how it applies to Disintegrate, but I'm guessing it's only the first damage that it does. I might even respect that, because now that I'm thinking about it, if it applies only to the first enemy and applies slow to it, I guess it works on bosses, right? Yeah, so we'll stay with that. As far as specialization goes, yeah, Disintegrate first of all. It has an interesting tree. Up here at the top, it goes more into the fire damage. Down here, it goes more into electric damage. To the left, it gives you a bit more damage, but no longer pierces. So you can see Disintegrate deals 20% more damage per enemy killed, up to 100% multiplicative with other modifiers, but Disintegrate no longer pierces. I do not want that. I want the piercing damage there, at least for as long as we specialize in this. Over here we can go with two beams, so we can fire 2 beams at once. We're losing some damage, and that's pretty much the theme over here. You get increased channel cost, you get a stronger beam or disintegration beam, but you lose damage. You'll see this theme happening a lot with these 3. But I think I want it because we gain 7 mana on kill. And for this idea, I am going to go to the left. Over on the right, we have, once again, Disintegrate goes to tier 2, deals more damage but costs more mana to channel. You can see 50% more mana cost. That means that we're moving from a channel cost of 7 to a channel cost of 11, probably, something about that, 10, 11, or 10.5, or who knows how they decide to calculate it. You can go to Disintegrate level 3, but then we're having a channel cost of 100% more, and we're doing 300% more damage. So overall, there's definitely a huge advantage in going this way. However, the mana cost will be crazy. Over on this side, we have what? Damage per tier. Disintegrate deals more damage while at tier 2, but also causes you to take more damage while at tier 2, and are doubled at tier 3. Interesting. So if you find yourself being really courageous, you could go this way. I'm thinking about going for shock as well. I think since we're focusing on lightning, we could even go with laser focus. Disintegrate no longer costs mana and instead grants mana every second while damaging enemies. However, it also deals less damage and applies elements less frequently. This does not enable mana regen while channeling Disintegrate, so we're getting no channel cost, mana per second damaging enemies 20, damage minus 60%, and ailment freezes minus 60%. You can get even more mana. So I'm guessing we could use Disintegrate. If we decide to respec once we specialize, then maybe we're gonna use Disintegrate in order to generate mana. That might be nice. To begin with, let's go in this direction with the 2 beams. We're gonna going for Galvanized Defense. You take less damage by 7% per point, and I like that. Of course, we're gonna have to level up these. And as far as teleportation goes, I decided to go with word first. Teleport grants word on cast. We're gonna go with this word gain per point of intelligence. 1. I'm going to get a bit of word retention, a bit of health to word, and then we're gonna go with increased elemental damage. All the buffs are applied for 4 seconds, so I'm guessing that this work well together. Then we're going to go with a bit of armor, mana efficiency to make this slightly cheaper, and reduce the cooldown of other skills. I don't know if that's what I want. There's another one, let's see if I can find it a bit quicker. Cooldown plus 6. This one. Cooldown recovery speed 10 per point. That would be a 50% reduced cooldown from 5 seconds. Let's see. After casting teleport, your next direct spell cast refunds its mana cost, but teleport has longer cooldown. So we're gonna go up to what, 11 seconds, and then we're going back. I guess we cannot teleport constantly. I felt, or I thought, that I could transform teleport in an ability where we quickly jump from one to another. But I'm guessing they didn't really want to turn this ability into something that is overpowered, right? Because if you have teleportation being cast instantly, then you have mages just jumping around the map, being one of the greatest classes to farm enemies, right? That is something which can happen if that is the case. We've seen many builds like this in ARPGs.
Taken me somewhere, yet my surroundings appear familiar.
I really like the Mage as a class. It has been very interesting to play with Sorcerer, then going for the Spellblade, and now we're heading towards... Okay, level up another Disintegrate. And now we're heading towards Runemaster, and I'm curious to see whether we can do anything with the channeling skills when we're playing the Runemaster. Either way, I like the different playstyles that I found so far. Let's see, what did I get here? Damage reflected to attacker, 16 armor, some cold resistance, a bit more armor, and elemental damage. You know what? I'm gonna lose the health for this. And we're gonna go with 14% less damage taken. That is going to be good. We might even want to maximize this, as long as this stays as our main damage ability. Do I want to go with a bit more lightning? That is the question. So we could go with Arcane Current. When you hit an enemy with a lightning skill, you cast Arcane Lightning at additional enemies dealing lightning damage. The effect has 5 seconds cooldown. Arcane Lightning is a single target lightning... Oh, so it's the base attack. That wouldn't be bad. And if we invest 5 points, Arcane Lightning always critically strikes. You know what? We're gonna invest a bit more like this. And I will tell you why. As soon as we're going towards this one, right? How many points? We need 4 points for that? Sure. Then we're gonna get a bit more word when teleporting. If we're casting lightning at nearby enemies while we channel this, we're doing secondary damage. Right? We're trying our best to protect our surroundings, and I feel like if we can constantly do this lightning blast, then that is going to be very useful for us. It looks like this. And I'm not sure it's being cast. How do we test this out? Like this. Maybe I have to read that ability again, because it doesn't seem like it triggers, does it? When you hit an enemy with a lightning skill, you cast arcane lightning at additional enemies, dealing lightning damage. This effect has at additional enemies, so it's not nearby enemies. So maybe lightning happens when we hit a target like this. Maybe this is a question to throw at the developers. Or we will scale it up, we will see whether it works or not. We will see especially whether we have those critical strikes whenever we have 5 points invested in it, right? Because right now we don't have any kind of critical. So it's going to be easy to figure out whether that works or not.
Watch over you. Gods.
I remember seeing this ability, I don't know if it was called Disintegrate or whatnot, in Diablo 3. And I remember seeing a sorceress casting that ability the very first time. And I was so excited for it. That looked so amazing at the time. I think it was one of those things, it was a time when skills like that was something new, like something we've never seen before, right? Especially in RPGs. Since most of the RPGs were turn-based, the only ARPG we had was Diablo 2, right? The Diablo series. There were a few others as well, but they were mostly turn-based, either turn-based or TRPGs, right? Things like that. And you don't really have abilities like this, like Disintegrate, all that much. And I think Diablo 3 had the first ability like this, where you channeled it and it looked like this, and you could control it very easily. And I remember being very impressed with it. I was really looking forward to trying it out. And I'm happy to see that how much games have evolved since then. And I'm happy that even small studios like GGG was, right, with Path of Exile, and now we have 11th Hour Gaming, are able to do really cool games. Okay, let's invest more points here. With this integration, we're gonna go with Searing Plasma. Disintegrate deals more damage. And with the teleportation, yeah, we're gonna go with even more word. But the gaming industry definitely has evolved a lot. I am feeling so lucky to have lived during this time, to have been born in the 90s, and I don't know how it was for the US or, you know, part of the Western world, but here in Romania, things like there weren't really Nintendos or NAS or things like that. There were some bootlegged version of the NAS, and I mean, I don't know what the first console or what type of console was the first bootleg which I've played. You bought it with actual money. I mean, it was legit as far as I was buying it from a store for real money. It's this console called Rambo. That was the first console that I ever had, and it had games on it already.
Farewell.
It didn't, you didn't have cartridges or anything like that, so it came with its own games. and you would, and I used to play that a lot. It had these joysticks with actual sticks. It wasn't the gamepad or anything. It was the joystick, and I used to break those a lot, you know, in time. And my father, like he knew how to fix them in a way. Like he would take it to the factory where he worked at, and he would make these pieces of steel, basically, where he would glue the top part of the joystick to the bottom part, and they would never break again just because they had this metal in them. It was very interesting as an like the history of how it was back then. Joystick, like you wouldn't be able to buy a joystick. Like these were, I don't even know where they brought them from. I know that a lot of products in the 90s were like these sort of bootlegged, were brought from Turkey or places like that. I mean, from what I remember on some old videos I've seen of people who were doing business back then, right? But I guess they were the people who had some money and knew how to do business. They went all around Europe and things like that. But yeah, there was this Rambo. The games weren't like these super crazy things, but it was fun at the time. I was a little kid. And then there was another console which came out, another bootlegged one, and that was an NAS bootleg. It was called Terminator. And there, you had Terminator 1, Terminator 2, an upgraded version of that. But yeah, they gave this bootleg version of consoles the name Rambo and Terminator. And you actually had Rambo on the box of it and Terminator on the box of it.
What brings you here?
And the Terminator 1 had cartridges. And you would get those if you ever play game on NAS, and I'm sure if you look online, there are simulators, because I've been looking for those games every once in a while. But there was a game called Legend of Cage, and you were like this ninja or something, and you would, and there are other ninjas that come around and they capture your princess, and you go after her and you jump from trees to trees, throwing shurikens. You are using a nunchuck to take down enemies, and that game was so awesome to me. But there were so many more. I mean, I remember the Addams Family was like this really complex game where I think you were playing as Pugsley, if I remember correctly, and you had to save your entire family or something like that. Super cool game. Unfortunately, I do remember that cartridge broke at some point, and that's a bit unfortunate, but what can you do? I'm sure there are plenty more copies out there. There was this Disneyland kind of game, but it was actually really cool. I mean, it wasn't what you'd imagine today's game be, today's Disneyland games be like. You are playing a character, I don't know, boy or girl, something like that, and you walked around Disneyland, and you went through all of these different rides, and you had to get keys or something to unlock other places. But in each of the rides, you had to do something different. It was a really cool and complex game. Oh, we're really doing a lot of damage to this boss. Nice. Basically, you would have to do a racing. You had to do a race with a cart at some point. There was like this haunted house, and there were all these ghouls and Frankensteins and things like that would attack you. You'd have to, it was like a jumping platform. You'd jump from place to place. And I don't know, I just remember it. Maybe I'm gonna look it up. Maybe I should even do a let's play of that. But that was such a cool game. For the time, I was quite young. I wasn't really that great at these games.
Humanity itself has
And
been
games
reduced.
weren't that
What? Go on then.
accepted, I guess, at the time. On one hand,
You
we used to play on these really old televisions, and after playing for, I don't know, 3 hours, you would get a headache pretty much. Let's see, 8% chance to gain ward when hit. Well, that could work. You know what? Yeah, I like that. 15 health and a bit more ward on hit, on when getting hit. We're not getting hit too often, but maybe we will. Let's see. Are we going to do anything else? No, I'm just gonna quickly sell this.
Yes.
And then we'll move on. With this point, yeah. We're getting volcanic orb, I don't care about that, but we now always crit with arcane lining. I wonder if this applies also to this one. It should, right? So we're gonna test this out. We're gonna use disintegrate. And I wanna see if critical strikes happen. At which point we know that arcane lighting is actually triggering. And if not, I'm going to try, or I'm also going to try lightning blast just to see if it applies to this, showing us that same icon, although it might not. Who knows? But for back then, you couldn't really play, and when I played, I still remember to this day, after playing for many hours. Let's see, lightning happening? No. I don't see any crits there. So even though we're hitting them with disintegrate, which is the lightning skill, it doesn't seem like arcane lightning triggers, which is a bit unfortunate. But a missed opportunity. Yeah, and this one always happens. And we have seen the criticals there, right? Has it hit multiple enemies? Like, let's try again. Yeah, that happened there. It's only with the lightning skill. Disintegrate apparently does not apply this. So we're gonna have to respec out of that, because I don't want to waste the skill if it's not gonna trigger. 5 points. 5 points of investment is super crazy amounts of damage. Like if we're getting the multipliers instead, it's going to make a huge difference in how this build is going to feel going forward. I went and removed the points from Arcane Current, and we shall see here. So we're moving from 867 damage, and I believe I'm going to put that here, 3 points. Now we're at 952. And then we're gonna go with a bit more intelligence. Now we're at 984. And let's see, word retention, that could be useful. Knowledge of destruction, critical multiplier 3% per point, and increased critical strike chance by 7% per point. Yep, let's try this. I want to see criticals. I haven't seen criticals on the disintegrate. And since we're doing a constant beam, then even the 7% chance should be pretty high for what we are doing, right? Should be triggering quite often, I would say. But we shall see. But I do remember, I remember the period when I was a kid as one of those times where I always wanted to play on the computer, but I would get these headaches after playing for many hours. You know, parents didn't like you sitting inside the house and playing all day either, so we would be sent outside to play with other people. We would go out, I guess during the winter, or no, let's not get into that because we don't have any more time today and it's such a long story, but maybe we can talk some other time about the good old days. You would go out and you would talk with your friends and talk about games, and then you'd come back inside the house and hopefully you'd get a chance at the TV to connect your connect the bootlegged console in order to play a bit longer. It was a very interesting time. Games were very different back then, and cartridges, just how should I say this? When you have bootlegs, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get what you see. You would go into the markets and you would buy these cartridges, like they would have, it's like the mobile games of today. You would go and you'd see the pictures of the super game, and when you'd go home and you'd put the cartridge in, you'd realize that it's actually the same base game that you would receive with the bootleg version of the console, right, when you bought it. So, they would have false advertising on those cartridges all the time. And after a while, like even the market changed, like you could go and take the cartridge back and you could take something else instead if it's not what it advertised, and like people were being understanding of all that. And yeah, it was a crazy time, I have to say. This idea started from how lucky I feel to have been born in the 90s, to have lived that. Let's go with a bit more resistance. Yeah, I'll go with a bit more intelligence and resistance here. A bit more damage on disintegrate and a bit more, what? Out of mind, word gain per point of intelligence. Sure, we'll do that. Now we're getting 30 something on teleport. Yeah, it was an interesting time in Romania. It was definitely a big time of change, and it was right after the fall of communism. A lot of things have happened towards more Western, more towards the Western world. Yeah, I don't see criticals getting triggered either, which is a bit weird, isn't it? Does this not scale at all with criticals? No criticals, no lightning triggers. That is a bit weird. Would that be a bit overpowered? Probably. Still. We've pretty much melted this. Yeah, we definitely have. We can keep going. Look at this. For how long can we keep this up? Okay, until around minus 30 mana. Okay, fair, fair. But yeah, that's all the time that we have for today. I am going to be going for the next specialization. I'm going to be farming then for some extra experience, and we'll return when we have something to show. Hope you will enjoy this small portion of the story. There's so much more to talk about, but I think I'm going to, once I'm done with all of these runs, I think I'm going to go into a bit of stream, because it feels like we can have a bit more of a conversation. I could answer some questions. We can try out some ideas together. So I'll probably see you on a stream once this series is done. But until then, or until the next episode, thank you very much for watching, and I wish you all to have a wonderful day.